Hello and welcome to WP. Well, the state election has come and gone, with Labor being returned to government. With an election, though, comes questions about portfolios, what the plans are for West Australians, including youth, and the outlook for this term of government. We spoke to political expert Martin Drum, who provides his analysis, as Mark McGowan heads into his second 4 years in charge of the state.
I will be quite interesting. Probably the headline act is how the Premier has appointed himself Treasurer as well as Premier. So he's going to have a pretty big workload over the next, say, 6 or 12 months in which he holds that office, perhaps longer. But that's the main thing. But there's 5 new faces in Cabinet, so there's a reasonable amount of turnover. It's a bit of a mixture of new ideas as well as plenty of experience.
Can we expect the Premier to move the Treasurer portfolio to his deputies or somewhere down the track? Because this is a heavy load and he's only taken on perhaps for a year during this critical time of COVID-19.
One of the real possibilities, reasonably likely, is that Roger Cook, when the pandemic is over, when it's receded and it's not such a big issue, might take on the Treasurer's role. And McGowan is staying in as Premier and Treasurer until that happens, and then can hand over the portfolio at that stage. And that would be a reasonably logical thing to happen. In the meantime, Roger Cook's taken on a number of economic portfolios, such as trade, that enable him to get his head around some of those issues a bit more.
So he's trying to get familiar with this setup?
Yeah, so Roger Cook's getting familiar with some of those economic issues, taking them on in addition to health, may well take on the role of Treasurer after the pandemic.
Papalia becomes the Minister of Police. What do you reckon?
Oh, look, I think he's the right sort of person for that particular job. He's the guy who has a Navy background. He's been working on defence issues for the state, again, lobbying the Commonwealth, etc. He's not unfamiliar with these sorts of things. He's probably a pretty good fit for that role.
For Reece Whitby, it is a big promotion, though, to emergency services.
Well, it's new. It's very new. It depends on. For a lot of the time, that won't be a huge issue. The time when he's going to be really busy, it was obviously around bushfire season. And then, of course, when things pop up, because you never know with emergency services, he'll obviously want good people around him. But I think it's possible to do that portfolio off the bat. It's not one of the most demanding portfolios, perhaps, except around emergency time.
What will be the most demanding portfolio amongst the junior ministers?
Oh, one person who has a really big challenge, and I think it kind of suits him though, is John Kerry. So John Kerry's Minister for Housing and Local Government. Local government's always messy and tricky and difficult, but in particular housing has been a challenging area, and clearly more needs to be done in that particular space. And what they really needed was someone who's got a lot of enthusiasm and energy, and he might be a good fit in that respect.
Finally, for young people, what they care about is climate change. Of course, Amber Jane Sanderson moving from Stephen Dawson to her, and obviously put together for environment, it'll be easier to manage, isn't it? And on the other hand, Dave Kelly is still the Minister for Youth. Nothing has changed except the science portfolio is not with him anymore. Yeah,
that's interesting seeing those two separated, but I think environment will be quite an issue that young people take an interest in. Of course, bear in mind training is also an issue for young people, so that's still going to be, that's it with the education portfolio. So there's a couple of areas of intersection there, and I think that Emma Jane Sanderson, like John Kerry, has taken on a significant role coming straight into Cabinet, because environment's always complex. It's mainly focused around stability around the core ministry, and then trying to give these new younger ministers, mostly younger ministers, interesting challenges. So emergency services, environment, housing, they're busy, active portfolios. So they're not brought in just to sit on their bums and do nothing. They're expected to be busy and they're expected to be contributors.
And now, here's AMA WA President Dr. Andrew Miller with his COVID-19 commentary.
Hi, well, it's been an interesting week in political and COVID news with the new government installed, and we'll be working again with Health Minister Roger Cook and a new Mental Health Minister, Stephen Dawson. Really looking forward to having some productive conversations with them about how to move emergency access in Western Australia forward, and also the big area of mental health, and continuing with our success in COVID. really important that we now step up our airborne protections following the hotel quarantine report, which showed that airborne spread was a problem there. Therefore, it's going to also be a problem in aged care and hospitals if we get COVID in there. Vaccination, of course, coming online, that's the big topic, access to vaccination. At this stage, the tap's on a little bit. There's just a few drips coming out and everybody's getting confused about when they're going to get their turn. So we're into 1B now, so that's all healthcare workers and also people over the age of 70 and people with specific chronic health conditions. No point ringing GPs at this stage to try and get appointments. GPs are going to reach out to their usual flu population, those practices that are going to have access to the vaccines. There will suddenly be a flood of vaccine available, hopefully soon, from the Australian manufacturing, and that will enable online bookings to be more efficient. But there is the vaccination eligibility checker online, and that gives you access to some future appointments, and also through GP respiratory clinics they're making some appointments now. So you can Google GP respiratory clinics in Perth, and there are some slots available there already going into the next month or two. But no need to panic, we've got no COVID in the community, and there will be a lot of vaccine around. Speaking of the vaccine, there has been some controversy with quite a number of countries putting on pause the AstraZeneca rollout after a number of strokes were observed in women under the age of 50. And we still don't know yet what that means. Norway's still holding the line that they feel this is an important problem. Other countries saying in the light of high COVID prevalence, it's not worth slowing down because of a very rare complication. When it comes your turn to have the vaccine, if that's something that concerns you, you should certainly talk to your GP about that, particularly if you feel you fall into that category that's been nominated, which is women mostly under the age of 50 who've been affected by this rare stroke-like complication. But again, very rare, and a sign that the system is working, that they're looking at patients, that they're following up any problems that are occurring and trying to work out, was this going to happen anyway, or was it as a result of the vaccine? Because one thing we do know that there's lots of other things that affect this kind of problem occurring, and this could be just a random statistical aberration. At the moment, that has nothing to do with the vaccination program, but good to see that they're watching it, and no reason to be alarmed about it. So by all means, ask questions, but certainly we know that our way out of this is going to be to get as much of the population vaccinated as we can. Thanks for your time.
And that's WP for this week. We'll be back again next time, but for now, it's back to you.
Thank you, Nelson. And here's Leo with what's coming up on 6 News.
Tonight on 6 News, breaking news, Phase 1B of Australia's vaccine rollout set to begin in just a few hours despite growing concerns over AstraZeneca's jab. The government is standing by its biggest supplier. Plus, New South Wales top cop mocked after proposing a consent app, but even he's now admitting it could be a terrible idea. A special report, what's being done to stop hoons across Melbourne, as fears grow about the potential for injury or even death, and claims that Joe Biden has been green screened into footage. Will fact check those claims and explain what's really going on. You can see full details on those stories and much more on our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find us. For now though guys, back to you.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. You can follow the latest on our website, wamennews.com.au.
From Sarah and myself, we wish you good health, good night, and see you next Sunday.
Take care.